What's the nature of your emergency?
Welcome back to the Tactical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Walton, joined by Sergeant Walton. Clint, how are you?
I'm really good.
A lot of people don't know that I didn't marry a police officer. And so I thought we could talk a little bit about overcoming self-doubt in the police academy. And this doesn't necessarily have to do with you being in the academy now. This could also be something that you might be able to use to be supportive to somebody else who might be going through the academy, because it was not easy. Clint and I got married, and then that Monday after, he started his first day of the police academy. We didn't go on our honeymoon until 3 years later. And so there was a lot that took place at once. I am thinking back to I'm not nitpicking on you, but I'm just thinking about the mindset, how young and naive things were back then, like when we first got married. And there was a lot of self-doubt that happened during the police academy. And so it was really important for me to make sure that I was doing everything that I could to help to support you, whether it was making sure you had your dinner and, everything was ironed, and helping you polish your boots and, all of those things. But on an emotional level, there was a lot of pushing that I had to do as well.
Yeah, I remember it was definitely an adjustment for me because it was a career change. My whole life, I had always planned on, being a correctional officer, working in the prisons, doing that. And so I was already in a career of corrections before I went into the police academy. And so it was an adjustment to go back, because I went through the academy for corrections and then worked for the prisons for a couple of years, and then transitioned into to the law enforcement side, or the policing side of things. And as I'm going through the academy, it's hard. It was definitely hard, and it was an adjustment. It's like, why am I pushing myself, or why am I putting myself through this punishment for no reason? Definitely, I'm glad that I did. But it was what I needed, that motivation. I needed a support system. And that's where Ashley came in huge, to be able to support me and to push me and to drive me beyond my capabilities.
Yeah. And it's because I knew that you could do it. And, this is not to nitpick on COs. We need them. They serve a purpose. Your entire family served as COs. One of them still does. But the way that you were doing it was so unhealthy. And so during that time, we could say it, you were depressed during that time, remember?
Oh, yeah.
And it was depressed because of working in the prison. And so you and I got together, and I think adding to that depression was I want to spend time with my girlfriend and then fiance. And you were so far away because you worked hours away from home, and you would do all of these back-to-backs, and you would be exhausted by the time that you did come home. And you guys had a crash pad out there. You would go back and forth, and, driving that long and then becoming an inmate yourself, essentially, it just created this environment that just was not you. It wasn't healthy for you. And in your mind, I think that, okay, my grandpa did this, my dad did this, my uncle, my brother, and so forth. So this is what I'm supposed to do. And you were the first person to say, maybe I don't like this.
Yeah, and I think one day, and I remember this moment distinctively, is I woke up and I looked in the mirror. I was 23 years old, I think, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And that's where Ashley and I had the talk and applied for the police department and started making that change. And I think it's important to really recognize it's important to get out of your comfort zone and do the work, because having that change is never comfortable. And that's where having those conversations with your spouse, with your loved ones, to say, something needs to change. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to sustain this.
Yeah. And I think something that created some difficulty between you and I too is, I was raised way different than you. I was raised more like a man than you were, and that's no knock on your parents, but that's just me being the only girl with 5 brothers and a dad who is very much like no BS, and you're going to do things. With you, you were the baby of the family. You were very sheltered. You didn't have your parents never had a need. There was nothing that existed that made them, kind of come down hard on you and give you that kind of tough love in that way. And so when you and I got together, there was so much that happened within, because we were dating for 6 months. 6 months later, we got engaged. And then 6 months after that, we were married. So think about that. Like in one single year, there was so much that happened. And then we moved in together, and then you joined the police academy. So there's so much in terms of that transition that did take place. So I completely understand why emotionally there was so much vulnerability there, because it was all happened at once. And it's like we ripped off the Band-Aid though. Like I'm really glad that it did all happen in that way. I would consider that the right way, so to speak. We followed all of the rules. We did everything right. My dad didn't want us to live together until we were married, so we didn't. And, all of the things. And in a traditional sense, I'm very glad that we did it that way. But I'm thinking about that time in the academy where there are some concerns, and it might be things like, am I cut out for this? I'm not as good as others, and you're comparing yourself to other people. Or maybe I should just quit before I fail.
And really looking at it for me, like the scholastic side, that was easy for me. And it was more of it was the mental and physical side of things that I almost, and I don't want to say had to break, it was just move past of that. Me telling that voice in my head telling me that I couldn't do it or that I wasn't good enough to do it. And it's that self-doubt, being able to push through that and being able, because I specifically remember there was a couple of weeks during the academy where it was really hard, and it wasn't physically hard. It was just emotionally hard, because I think everything was all setting in at that time. And that's where we had conversations surrounding it, and you supported me in what I wanted to do and how we could move forward from it. And I looked up at different avenues, and ultimately it came down to is, nope, we're sticking through this and we're going to power through. And look, 17 years later, look where we're at,
Yeah, that was a part of manning up too. Like a transit. There was a lot of transition of going from like your parents' son to your wife's husband. And yeah. I think that's what that was. And I have my own opinions on this, but I'm curious what you have to think about it. I am wondering, do you think that mental and physical angst, the difficulty in the academy, is the same now as it was 17 years ago?
Absolutely not. Like I'm completely different than who I was.
No. I mean, for the people going through the academy now.
Oh, no, absolutely not. It changes astronomically, because you start reformatting and retraining your mind on how what is important and what's not important, to be able to adapt and overcome, and be able to where now I look back, like as I'm sitting here looking back at that today, like, well, that was kind of stupid.
I feel like the standards and requirements for the academy have significantly diminished. And
that is very true. Like, academies aren't near as stringent or hard as they once were. And I see it in new officers that come through, like there's still challenges. It's still challenging, but it seems like to me, they've lowered the bar compared to how it used to be, because of, oh, well, it's not fair. You can't do this. You can't do that, to where when I went through, it was like, no, you're doing this or you're done.
Yeah, and the crazy thing with that is then you go into a police department and their standards are going to be significantly higher, and then that's why you have a lot of people that don't even pass their FTO.
Yeah, I know. I have had multiple trainees who they just said, yeah, this isn't for me. I can't do it. They made it through the academy. They did all the right things, but then they worked for us. They worked through training, and they're like, yeah, I can't work in this specific city because it's too busy. It's too hard. They quit before they gave it a full chance.
Yeah. And before we wrap this up, looking back now, what advice would you have to somebody who wants to go to the academy, who's going through the academy, or who might be able to use this kind of knowledge as something in their back pocket to support somebody else who might be going through it?
Communicate. honestly, that's the best thing is communicate. Know it's okay to have that self-doubt, but learn the tools, have those avenues of being able to push through. Put your head down and just grind through, because it's not going to get easier, to be honest with you, but it will become to where it's manageable, because that's your new normal.
Yeah, and you become tougher.
Absolutely.
I hope you've gotten some value out of today's episode. If you have, do us a favor, drop a review, subscribe down below, and as always, know that I'm sending you a long, tight hug from my home to yours.